Welcome to Quarantine Crafts, where we practice thinking like an artist. We'll be using imagination, creativity, and humor to think up new ways to make art using what we already have, whether that's things we find at home or things we find in nature. Let's begin. Today we'll be making mobiles. This is a form of lightweight sculpture that hangs in the air and moves slowly over time. Artist Alexander Calder was the first to create mobile sculptures, beginning about 100 years ago. Artists continue to make mobiles today. One of my favorites is Yuko Takada Keller, whose beautiful paper installation you can see on the screen right now. This is a really beautiful mobile that my friend Anne made for me a few years back using a stick that she found and some handmade beads and some other cool things that she found in the woods. Isn't it gorgeous? I'd like to use it as an inspiration for our project today. We'll get started by gathering some simple tools and supplies. Kids, remember to ask a grown-up if you have questions about which tools are safe for you to use. The first thing you'll need is a pair of scissors. Next, you'll need one or more sticks to use as a cross piece. In this video, you'll see me using a piece of driftwood and some wooden spoons. But the whole point of Quarantine Crafts is to use what we can find, and there are all kinds of things around your house that might work well. Look around and see what inspires you. Next, you'll need some sturdy string or yarn that can be used to hang the different pieces in your mobile. And finally, you'll need 3 or more little objects that will become the hanging pieces in your mobile. This is a great time to look around the house and see what you can find. Maybe there are little toys, leftovers from an old project, old keys, or even something in the recycling bin that will capture your imagination. Once you have scissors, cross pieces, string, and little objects gathered, you're ready to get started. The simplest form of a mobile has just one cross piece that hangs. And that's what we're gonna make first. So here's our cross piece, got a nice piece of driftwood here. And then we have a few things that hang from it. In this case, I'm gonna have 3 bells that I'd like to hang from this. Real simply there. And I'd like this to feel kind of rustic and earthy, so I've got this nice browned string that I'm gonna be using to attach all of these things. I'm going to start by tying my strings onto this piece of driftwood because that makes the process easier for me. When I do this, I really like to wrap the string around a couple of times, especially if it's a piece of wood or something else that's kind of an unusual shape. And then I'm just going to tie this in a little knot. Once you've got that knot tied, you see we've got this little string, so I'm just going to cut that little string off. And then we have a string for our first bell. Okay, so now we have our cross piece and our different strings, and I'm going to go ahead and attach those bells to those strings. You see how I can kind of play around here and decide how do I want this to look? How do I want it to be laid out? Maybe I want them all at the same height. Maybe I want them differently. There's not one right way to do this because this is your art. When I go to tie these on, it can be a little bit tricky to handle these long strings. So I'm going to cut them down just a little bit longer than what I need and then use that to tie through the top of these bells. You can tie any kind of knot you like. I usually do a square knot, but it doesn't matter. There we go. And then I'm just gonna cut that off so we have a nice clean cut there. So then we have something that looks kind of like this. Now, we need to find a way to hang this. And there are a couple different ways that we could do that. I'm going to move this down so you can see. If we want this to move around a lot, we might think about putting a single line here in the middle, and then it can rock and tip. But if we want it to be fairly stable, we can put one line from one end to the other, and that'll give us a nice stable form. I'm going to hang this mobile like my friend Anne's at the beginning of the video. You'll see that I'm going to use one string to make a hanger that extends to either end, and that gives it a really stable form. Now, when you go to pick up your finished mobile for the first time, you're going to want to go slowly because sometimes the different elements can move a little bit as they're coming up off the table. We just don't want it to get tangled. The very last step in the process is to decide where you'd like to display your finished piece. This might be a fun time to ask someone in your house where they'd like to look at your art every day. If you'd like to try a more elaborate design with multiple cross pieces, I recommend laying out the different pieces like I've done on the table here so you can see how everything will fit together. The process for tying the different pieces together is pretty similar, but you have to be a little bit more careful because it's definitely easier to get things tangled when you have more pieces at once. And here's the finished product. We'll only be enjoying this one for a couple days because I know we'll need those spoons in the kitchen again soon. But that's okay. Not all art has to last forever. Once you start looking around, you will find all kinds of possibilities to make a mobile. The only limit is your imagination. Here's one I designed using some bottles that I pulled out of our recycling bin, which are just the right size to hold a flower or two. Happy spring! If this video has inspired your imagination, we'd love to see what you created. Please drop us a line at the Port Angeles Fine Arts Center, and stay tuned for more fun quarantine crafts videos coming soon. Thanks!